Hi and Assalamualaikum everyone. We are from Group 1 and we will be talking about the cooperative principle. Let's meet our group member first. We have Sofia, Zahra, Arifah and Hanani. So basically, the cooperative principle is a concept introduced by H.P. Chris. This principle explains how we manage to communicate smoothly in everyday conversation. It shows how speakers work together to keep a conversation clear, meaningful, and easy to understand. And what is interesting is, the cooperative principles also helps explain why we can understand more than what someone's literally say. So even when someone doesn't completely say something, we still get the meaning because we follow this principle without even realizing it.
Now let's look at the cooperative principle by Paul Grease. This principle explains how people work together to make conversation smooth and meaningful. Grease said that good communication happens when speakers follow 4 maxims: the maxim of quantity, quality, relation, and manner. Each maxim guides us on how to give information, how to speak truthfully, how to stay relevant, and how to be clear. To understand how these maxims work, let's look at an example. Imagine this conversation. A asks, "What's the capital of Venezuela?" And B replies, "Caracas." Here, B follows all 4 of Greece's maxims. First, the maxim of quantity. B gives exactly the amount of information needed, just the answer, not too much or too little. Next, the maxim of quality. B's response is true. Caracas is the correct capital, so the answer is reliable. Then, the maxim of relation. B stays directly relevant. The answer fits the question perfectly without changing the topic. And finally, the maxim of manner. B answers clearly and briefly. 1 word is enough, and the meaning is immediately understood. So, in this conversation, we can see how the cooperative principle helps make communication simple, direct, and effective.
Now, let's take a look at situation 2, where A and B are fixing a car. So, the maxim of quantity tells us to give just the right amount of information. When people give insufficient or excessive information, communication becomes unhelpful. Imagine B needs 3 bolts to complete a part of the repair, but A hands B only 1 bolt. Now that is too little information. B cannot complete the task, and now B must ask again. Now, imagine A gives B 300 bolts instead. That is way too much information, or in this case, too many bolts. This overwhelms B and wastes time. Both cases violate the maxim of quantity because A fails to provide the amount B actually needs. The maxim of quality focuses on truthfulness. We should only provide information we believe to be true and avoid statements or actions that are deceptive or insincere. If B asks for brake fluid, A should not intentionally pass oil instead. A knowingly giving the wrong item violates quality because it represents false or misleading information. Another example is when A pretends to tighten bolts but isn't actually doing it. Even though this involves actions rather than words, it still breaks quality because A is being insincere. Communication requires honesty to work. The maxim of relation or relevance tells us to contribute information that is connected to the conversation. Irrelevant responses break this maxim. Imagine B asks A for bolts right now while working on the car. Instead of helping immediately, A comes back half an hour late. This response is no longer relevant to the situation because the timing and relevance are off. A violates the maxim of relation. Or imagine A gives B a sandwich instead of bolts. Definitely not relevant to the task. Manner is all about how we communicate. Even if your message is truthful and relevant, it still fails if it's presented in a confusing way. For example, B asks for a size 8 bolt. A hands a box labeled size 10 even though the correct bolt is inside. This is confusing and unclear because the packaging does not match the content. that confusion violates the maxim of manner. If A gives instructions in a tangled, disorganized way, that also breaks the maxim of manner. Communication should be clear and easy to understand.
Okay, so now I'm going to explain implicature based on Greece's theory. First, when we speak, we produce something called an utterance. An utterance helps us achieve our communicative goals and maintain social relationships. Greece 1975. But the important thing to remember is that not all utterances have a literal meaning. Okay, next is how implicature works. So, meaning often depends not only on what it is said, but also what it is implied. Greece explains that we usually follow conversational maxims like the maxim of relevance. When the maxim seems to be violated, we search for the implied meaning instead of taking the words literally. Said by Greece, 1975. For example, imagine this conversation. A asks, "Can you come see me tomorrow?" And B replies, "I've got a meeting." Here, B never directly says no, but A understands that B can come. According to Greece 1975, even though the answer seems irrelevant, A uses the maxim of relevance to figure out the true intention. So, this is how implicature works, where the meaning goes beyond the literal words and listeners infer the message through context and cooperation.
So that is all from us from Group 1. Thank you for listening. Bye.